Ian Warburton, after reading your first long-winded comment I headed over to your channel to see your personal globe proofs. What a shock, you haven't got a single globe proof. Actually, you only have one video, from 7 years ago, and it's certainly not a globe proof video. There's a funny thing, well actually, a very sad thing about flat earth trolls. When they heard about flat earth for the first time, they chose to laugh or mock instead of just disproving it by proving the globe model on their own. Ian, that's indoctrination controlling your brain. That's not meant as an insult, it's just a fact. That's what programming does. The only reason I didn't laugh, or mock, is because of the Bible, specifically Genesis chapter 1, our creation story. I found your comment to be insulting, misleading and dishonest. It looks to me like you wanted to discredit my research. And you did it by omitting vital information. Information that helps prove there is no curvature on your ball Earth. So, let's go through your comment so my viewers see what you have said. They can compare your comment to the actual content in my video. My focus for the video in question, which I have linked in the description, was Dennis Beach, New Brunswick. I was looking 28 miles to an island named Al Haut, meaning high island or tall island, as it's 328 feet high in the center. My focus for the video in question, which I have linked in the description, was Dennis Beach, New Brunswick. The parking at the top is 80 feet above sea level. It's a steep hill going from 80 feet, down 60 feet to 20 feet above sea level. My eye level at the top is 85.5 feet. At the bottom of the hill my eye level will be 25.5 feet. The video Ian commented on was from June 2022. A video showing an island named Al Haut, near Nova Scotia and Margarettsville, Port George and Port Lorne, Nova Scotia. I'll leave a link in the description. This is a Google Earth view showing Dennis Beach on the right, where the lines converge. The red line goes 41 miles to Margarettsville, Nova Scotia. I will talk about the yellow line extending out from the red line later in this video. The yellow line from Dennis Beach goes 28 miles to an island named Al Haut, meaning high island. Ian, let's look at your post. You mentioned Dennis Bay. I do research at Dennis Beach, New Brunswick, not Dennis Bay. Anyways, Dennis Beach gets a tidal range of 6 feet to 35 feet. It's kind of deceptive that you only mentioned 40-foot tidal range. Sadly, that's very typical of globe believers who have never taken the time to prove what they were programmed to believe in public schools. Trolls and shills tend to be deceptive, and by that, I mean they are not all that honest. One very important thing I have noticed about these people, is they leave out details that should not be left out. Example, talking about curvature from a specific altitude such as 80 feet, and then leave out the fact I walked down to 20 feet, at the bottom of the 60-foot hill, and out to sea level showing zero curvature. Again, I feel that's very deceptive. I feel they leave this critical information out of their comments because they can't explain how I can see what should be blocked by upwards of 1,000 feet of missing curvature. When we are dealing with debunking curvature, thus destroying the heliocentric dreams, they forget to mention it. Very deceptive. I find it funny that these faith believers, who have zero globe proofs, ask what level is. To me personally, I feel these people are not on the level. They are not even honest with themselves. Water seeks its own level, another thing that debunks the globe model. However, the oceans do rise and fall twice a day every day. It's a base level for measuring the elevation when water is at rest before receding, known as mean sea level. You asked if I have taken photos on different days. I have, and you would know that, if you had taken a look through my videos. For the first 3 years after learning about flat Earth, I went to Dennis Beach every 2 days. Well, other than days when it was raining or snowing. It's hard to do any observations over distances when you can't see. You asked if I allowed for atmospheric refraction. I guess refraction is one more thing you have no clue about. Refraction is caused by varying temperatures between water and air. It's a distraction, as it pulls things down, not up, over a curve. However, there are conditions where refraction will create a superior mirage and form a copy of the target upside down over top of itself. Refraction also causes mirroring, which creates an inferior mirage which mirrors the sky and can mirror the object right out of view, leaving only sky and water visible. Ian, you show your ignorance on the topic when you need someone to explain why things disappear as I go down a hill from 80 feet to sea level. They disappear for a few reasons. It's about perspective due to lowering one's elevation. It involves angular size and resolution over that distance. There are days I can go right to sea level and still see the 328-foot high island from 28 miles away. And there are days I can't see it all. And there are days when it slowly disappears due to moisture density in the air. The tides play a role as well. When it's low tide, I can see more of the island and more of the mainland. Wind and waves play a role as well. If it's windy, it creates waves, and waves block objects at distance. 3-foot waves can easily block 20 feet over 28 miles. The lower my perspective, the more the waves block at distance. None of that has anything to do with curvature, Ian, as curvature is something you believe but have never proven. Globe believers assume they know truth when it comes to the heliocentric model. However, believing your education is faith, you are not lied to. If you have not personally researched the topic to prove the validity of that topic, it's just faith on your part. Again, you are not using your brain, you are just following your programming. We were led to believe this image was a photograph taken from space, when in reality, it was a composite image created right here on flat Earth, by deceivers at NASA. In my humble opinion, I believe one should take the time to research and prove what we can, before we start babbling like we have. That's biblical. 1 Thessalonians 5:21, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. Ian, in your comment you pointed out that there were no visible points of reference. That is true, however, you have to use your God-given brain and a little critical thinking. Just a little thinking and you would realize it means what we see must be further inland, as I show in the rest of the video, which you didn't mention in your comment. So again, you are being a bit deceptive, like I find with triggered trolls and shills. My calculations are made to the shoreline. That's to show how much alleged curvature there should be to that point. My calculations point out the amount of alleged curvature based on the distance to the shoreline. For example, 41 miles to Margarettsville, Nova Scotia has to have 600 feet of globe Earth curvature. The thing is, the land at the coastline is less than 200 feet above sea level. This means the land we are seeing must be further inland, right? So let's find 600 feet above sea level on the line of sight through Margarettsville. The yellow line at Margarettsville goes to 600 feet above sea level. That's more distance we now have to calculate. And the distance if 55 miles. Globe spherical math says there has to be 1,300 feet of alleged curvature. There is no land 1,300 feet high on this line of sight. How can that be possible if the globe demands it? The truth is there is no globe, thus no curvature. Globe model debunked. Instead of complaining, you should have done some research to see where there was 600 feet of land to match the amount of curvature, but you didn't. I do research, and I share what I learn and prove. I do it hoping globe believers will use some critical thinking, but they never do. It just shows how lazy and locked into the lies these flat earth trolls can be. They refuse to research the globe yet are so willing to show their ignorance. They just blindly swallow and follow the narrative. Your comment asked about the lighthouse at Margarettsville. From Dennis Beach the lighthouse is not visible. The island, Al-Oat, blocks that part of Margarettsville. Note, Nova Scotia Lighthouse Preservation Society says the lighthouse is 22 feet high. And the light is 30 feet above sea level. It would be great if the lighthouse was a couple of miles east so I could see it. There is a lighthouse I see from 41 miles away on the days when I arrive early. I like to capture the stars, planets and sunrise from outside our city. I do my observation from 125 feet above sea level, and the light is only 85 feet above sea level. It should be blocked by 500 feet of curvature, but it isn't. Ian, again, I show that globe believers, like yourself, never use critical thinking or do their own research to prove their belief. I have proven there is zero curvature to the island, Al-Ot, 28 miles away, as well as zero curvature to Margarettsville, 41 miles away. You deliberately omitted both Port George, 46 miles away, and Port Lorne, 51.6 miles away in your comment. That seems really deceitful. So, let's look at those two locations and see if there is curvature to match the distance. Port George, less than 300 feet above sea level, has to have 800 feet of curvature. That's 500 feet of missing curvature. No wonder you avoided mention it. Line of sight to 800 feet is 50 miles away, which calls for 1,000 feet of curvature. Do you see how it works? More distance, more curvature demanded. If we look for 1,000 feet on this line of sight, we find there is no land that high. The same problem with Port Lorne. No land height to match the curvature. You left out the part where I walked down from 80 feet above sea level, down a 60-foot hill to the beach. Every step I took going down that hill meant more curvature to the locations I could still see. Let me give you a few examples. Dropping 10 feet, from 80 feet to 70 feet, looking to the island, Al-Ot, means more curvature to that 90-foot point. The expected curvature was 193 feet, and it didn't block the 90-foot point. At 70 feet above sea level there has to be 210 feet of curvature. And it still couldn't block the point. It's important to point out these omissions globe believers forget to mention, when they make these comments on my videos. It's a bit deceptive on their part. From 60 feet looking 28 miles to Al-Ot we still see the 90-foot point, which now calls for 228 feet of alleged curvature. Plus, the split in the right point is 225 feet at the bottom of the split. That means we should see nothing below the bottom of the split, not even the mainland of Nova Scotia. From a 50-foot eye level, looking to the island, 28 miles away, there has to be 249 feet of curvature. This means, nothing below the right point is visible, yet it is visible. And so is the mainland of Nova Scotia. Port George, 46 miles away, should now have 900 feet of curvature to land less than 300 feet high. Why did you not mention this? Port Lorne at 51 miles away has to have 1,200 feet of curvature. Again, there is no land that high. You talk about refraction lifting things up from beyond curvature, but notice that refraction is causing mirroring at the bottom of the island, creating an inferior mirage which will eventually cause the island to disappear, leaving only a mirrored sky. So, I have shown a superior mirage creating an inverted island over an island. I have also shown an inferior mirage creating a mirrored image of the island under the island. Now it's your turn to show me that island and the mainland Nova Scotia were brought up from behind curvature. So far all I have seen from you, Ian, is deception. Now at 40 feet above sea level, which demands 273 feet of curvature to the island. Again, that means we should see nothing below the top of the point, but again we do see below that. We also see more inferior mirage the lower I get. Nothing to do with curvature. Ian, we still see the Nova Scotia mainland, which now has 975 feet of curvature to Port George. And again, there is no land that high on this line of sight. Port Lorne, 51 miles away, has to have 1,250 feet of curvature. And yet again there is no land that high. I show that you ignored the most important part of the video because it destroys your globe model. You are a dishonest troll. From 30 feet above sea level that has to be 302 feet of curvature to the island. That leaves just 26 feet of island visible. There is 103 feet just to the bottom of the split. And we see well below the split. Now there is even more inferior mirage mirroring the bottom of the island away. And Ian, there is still mainland Nova Scotia visible. More than 1,000 feet of curvature to Port George and 1,300 feet of curvature to Port Lorne. We are supposed to believe you are an honest person, when you deliberately left all this proof out of your comment. You're an embarrassment to honest people, Ian. Shame on you. Now I know why you don't have content on your channel, coward. At 25 feet I could still see a bit of the mainland. I don't need to put the details for that, as I have already proven zero curvature to the mainland well over 60 miles away. I tried to find 1,000 foot high land which didn't exist, even to 1,300 feet of curvature. Now I will go out to sea level, which is 0 feet, and see how low I can get my camera. At sea level I have a 5.5 foot eye level which calls for 421 feet of curvature to the 328 foot high island. Now the island's inferior mirage has mirrored at least half the island, yet we still see the top half. Again, mirroring has nothing to do with curvature. Okay, now I will just get to the point where I have my camera at the lowest point. Let me point something out. I was at sea level when I got to the moss-covered rocks. When I start walking over the rocks I was still moving lower. By the time I got to the sand I was at least a foot lower. And when I walked out further, I was more than 2 feet lower. So, when I was there and put my camera 2 feet above the sand I was actually at 0 feet above sea level. This is 522 feet of curvature. That's 200 feet of missing curvature over 28 miles. And, I could still see 100 feet of the island. This is why Ian the Flat Earth Troll neglected to mention this part of the video in his comment. Again, this shows him as a deceiver and was trying to mislead my viewers. There was more to this troll's comment, but I believe I have proven my point by showing his dishonesty when I showed you that he left out almost all the video rather than admit I debunked his globe model. A definite attempt to sway viewers from even watching the video. Again, I will leave the link to that video in the description so you can see it in its entirety. And Ian, you disingenuous troll, if you wish to babble further, take the time to prove your globe model and put it on your channel. We will gladly school you on it.